Second time, maybe we'll get this to work right. Welcome back. We are on number 107 now in our reading. In our last video, we discussed the number 7 and the birthday of the world and the Sabbath and the moon's waxing and waning and how it ties. What I got out of that was mankind retracing their way and their steps through the fens of wickedness. How what we learned growing up, we would have to go back through to get out of wickedness. Jesus said in the Aquarian Gospel, "He who wishes to enter eternal life must get out of the fens of wickedness. And to get out of the fens of wickedness, he must retrace his steps out of the fens of wickedness." Just as if one were to get lost in a forest, he must retrace his steps in order to get out of the forest. Same principle applies. How you got into sin is how you get out of sin. You've got to go back. You've got to retrace your steps, find out where you've been, what you've done. And it's why in Michael Jackson's childhood video, he talks about people viewing the things he believes in as strange eccentricities. They view him as kidding around, but Michael was very serious. He was saying, look, even God's told you this. He said, you've got to see things through the eyes of a child. He tried to tell people that this is the way out. This is the way to get out of sin. This is the way to obtain eternal life. You've got to go back through the fence of wickedness. With that, let's continue with point 107. But this number is not only a perfecter of things, but it is also, so to say, the most harmonious of numbers, and in a manner the source of that most beautiful diagram which describes all the harmonies, that of fourths, and that of fifths, and that of the diapason. It also comprises all the proportions, the arithmetical, the geometrical, and moreover the harmonic proportion. And the square consists of these numbers, 6, 8, 9, and 12. And 8 bears to 6 the ratio of being 1/3 greater, which is the diatessaron of harmony. And 9 bears to 6 the ratio of being half as great again, which is the ratio of fifths. And 12 is to 6 in a twofold proportion, and this is the same as the diapason. The number 7 comprises also, as I have said, all the proportions of arithmetical proportion, from the number 6 and 9 and 12. For as the number in the middle exceeds the first number by 3, it is also exceeded by 3 by the last number. And geometrical proportion is according to these 4 numbers. For the same ratio that 8 bears to 6, that also does 12 bear to 9, and this is the ratio of thirds. Harmonic ratio consists of 3 numbers, 6 and 8 and 12. But there are 2 ways of judging of harmonic proportion. One when, whatever ratio the last number bears to the first, the excess by which the last number exceeds the middle one is the same as the excess by which the middle number exceeds the first. And anyone may derive a most evident proof of this from the numbers before mentioned, 6 and 8 and 12. For the last number is double the first. And again, the excess of 12 over 8 is double the excess of 8 over 6. For the number 12 exceeds 8 by 4, and 8 exceeds 6 by 2, and 4 is the double of 2. And another test of harmonic proportion is, when the middle term exceeds and is exceeded by those on each side of it by an equal portion, for 8, being the middle term, exceeds the first term by a 1/3 part. For if 6 be subtracted from it, the remainder 2 is 1/3 of the original number 6. And it is exceeded by the last term in an equal proportion. For if 8 being taken from 12, the remainder 4 is 1/3 of the whole number 12. Let this then be premised as of necessity. It must, respecting the honorable qualities which this diagram or square has, and the name to which it is entitled. And the number 7 unfolds an equal number of ideas, and even more in the case of incorporeal things, which are perceptible only by the intellect. And its nature extends also over every visible essence, reaching to both heaven and earth, which are the boundaries of everything. For what portion of all the things on earth is there which is not fond of seven, being subdued by an affection and longing for the seventh? Accordingly, men say that the heaven is girdled with seven circles, the names of which are as follows: the Arctic, the Antarctic, the summer tropic, the winter tropic, the equinoctial, the zodiac, and last of all, the galaxy. For the horizon is something which affects ourselves, in proportion as anyone has acute vision, or the contrary, our sensation cutting off at one time a lesser, and at another time a greater circumference. The planets, too, and the corresponding host of fixed stars are arrayed in seven divisions, displaying a very great sympathy with the air and the earth. For they turn the air towards the times that are called the seasons of the year, causing in each of them innumerable changes by calm weather, and pleasant breezes, and clouds, and irresistible blasts of wind. And again, they make rivers to overflow and to subside, and turn plains into lakes. And again, on the contrary, they dry up the waters. They also cause the alterations of the seas, when they receded and return with a reflux. For at times, when the tide recedes on a sudden, an extensive line of shore occupies what is usually a wide gulf of sea, and in a short time afterwards the waters are brought back, and there appears a sea, sailed over, not by shallow boats, but by ships of exceeding great burden. And they also give increase and perfection to all the terrestrial animals and plants, which produce fruit, endowing each with a nature to last a long time, so that new plants may flourish and come to maturity, the old ones having passed away in order to provide an abundant supply of necessary things. Moreover, the constellation Ursa Major, which men call the guide of mariners, consists of seven stars, which the pilots, keeping in view, steer in innumerable paths across the sea, directing their endeavors toward an incredible task beyond the capacity of human intellect. For it is through conjectures directed by the aforementioned stars that they have discovered countries which were previously unknown, those who dwell on the continent having discovered islands, and islanders having found out continents. For it was fitting that the recesses both of earth and sea should be revealed to that God-loving animal, the race of mankind, by the purest of essences, namely, heaven. And besides the stars above mentioned, the band of the Pleiades is also made up of seven stars, the rising and occultation of which are the causes of great benefits to all men. For when they set, the furrows are plowed up for the purpose of sowing, and when they are about to rise, they bring glad tidings of harvest. And after they have arisen, they awaken the rejoicing husbandmen to the collection of their necessary food, and they with joy store up their food for their daily use. And the sun, the ruler of the day, making two equinoxes every year, both in spring and autumn. The spring equinox in the constellation of Aries, and the autumnal one in Libra, gives the most evident demonstration possible of the divine dignity of the number seven. For each of the equinoxes takes place in the seventh month, at which time men are expressly commanded by law to celebrate the greatest and most popular and comprehensive festivals, since it is owing to both these seasons that all the fruits of the earth are engendered and brought to perfection, the fruit of corn and all other things which are sown, being owing to the vernal equinox, and that of the vine, and of all the other plants which bear hard berries, of which there are great numbers, to the autumnal one. And since all the things on the earth depend upon the heavenly bodies according to a certain natural sympathy, it is in heaven too that the ratio of the number 7 began, and from thence it descended to us also, coming down to visit the race of mortal men. And so again, besides the dominant part of our mind, our soul is divided into 7 divisions, there being 5 senses, and besides them the vocal organ. And after that, the generative power, all which things, like the puppets in a raree show, which are moved by strings by the manager, are at one time quiet, and at another time in motion, each according to its suitable habits and capacities of motion. And in the same way, if anyone were to set about investigating the different parts of the body in both their interior and their exterior arrangement, he will in each case find 7 divisions. Those which are visible are as follows: the head, the chest, the belly, 2 arms, and 2 legs. The internal parts, or the entrails, as they are called, are the stomach, the heart, the lungs, the spleen, the liver, and the 2 kidneys. Again, the principal and dominant part in an animal is the head, and that has 7 most necessary divisions: 2 eyes, an equal number of ears, 2 channels for the nostrils, and the mouth to make up 7, through which, as Plato says, mortal things find their entrance, and immortal things their exit. For into the mouth do enter meat and drink, perishable food of a perishable body. But from out of it proceed words, the immortal laws of an immortal soul, by means of which rational life is regulated. Again, the things which are judged of by the best of the senses, sight, partake of number according to their kind. For the things which are seen are 7: body, distance, shape, magnitude, color, motion, and tranquility, and besides these there is nothing. It also happens that all the changes of the voice amount to 7: the acute, the grave, the contracted, in the 4th place the aspirated sound, the 5th is the tone, the 6th the long, the 7th the short tone, the short sound. There are also 7 motions: the motion upwards, the motion downwards, that to the right, that to the left, the forward motion, the backward motion, and the rotatory motion, as is most especially shown by those who exhibit dances. It is affirmed also that the secretions of the body are performed in the aforesaid number of 7. For tears are poured out through the eyes, and the purifications of the head through the nostrils, and through the mouth the saliva which is spit out. There are, besides, 2 other channels for the evacuation of the superfluities of the body, the one being placed in front, and the other behind. The 6th mode of evacuation is the effusion of perspiration over the whole body, and the 7th that most natural exercise of the generative powers. Again, in the case of women, the flux called the catamenia is usually carried on for 7 days. Also, children in the womb receive life at the end of 7 months, so that a very extraordinary thing happens. For children who are born at the end of the 7th month live, while those who are born at the expiration of the 8th month are altogether incapable of surviving. Again, the dangerous diseases of the body, especially when lasting fevers, arising from the distemperature of the powers within us, attack us, are usually decided about the 7th day. For that day determines the contest for life, allotting safety to some men and death to others. And the power of this number does not exist only in the instances already mentioned, but it also pervades the most excellent of the sciences, the knowledge of grammar and music. For the lyre, with 7 strings, bearing a proportion to the assemblage of the 7 planets, perfects its admirable harmonies, being almost the chief of all instruments, which are conversant about music. And of the elements of grammar, those which are properly called vowels are, correctly speaking, 7 in number, since they can be sounded by themselves, and when they are combined with other letters, they make complete sounds, for they fill up the deficiency existing in semi-vowels, making the sound whole, and they change and alter the natures of the mutes, inspiring them with their own power, in order that what has no sound may become endowed with sound. On which account it appears to me that they also originally gave letters their names, and acting as became wise men, did give the name to the number 7 from the respect they had for it, and from regard to the dignity inherent in it. But the Romans, adding the letter S, which had been omitted by the Greeks, shows still more conspicuously the correct etymological meaning of the word, calling it septem, as derived from simnos, venerable, as has been said before, and from sevasmos, veneration. These things and more still are said in a philosophical spirit about the number 7, on account of which it has received the highest honors in the highest nature, and it is honored by those of the highest reputation among both Greeks and barbarians, who devote themselves to mathematical sciences. It was also greatly honored by Moses, a man much attached to excellence of all sorts, who described its beauty on the most holy pillars of the law, and wrote it in the hearts of all those who were subject to him, commanding them at the end of each period of 6 days to keep the 7th holy, abstaining from all other works which are done in the seeking after and providing the means of life, devoting that day to the single object of philosophizing with a view to the improvement of their morals and the examination of their consciences. For conscience, being seated in the soul as a judge, is not afraid to reprove men, sometimes employing pretty vehement threats, at other times by milder admonitions, using threats in regards to matters where men appear to be disobedient, of deliberate purpose, and admonitions when their offenses seem involuntary, through want of foresight, in order to prevent their hereafter offending in a similar manner. To be continued in the next video.